just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other.
Here we are once again, True Seekers podcast, Provides Coach podcast with Coach Josh Greco. What is going on, Coach? How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. It's that time. Here we are again. I'm excited to be here.
What's been the predominant emotion that has been with you today? And I'm sure there's been a lot, but what would you say would be the one that, if there had to be one narrative emotionally for the day, what would that be?
Ooh, let me feel into that a little bit. I like this question because it makes me have to be present, not only for this moment, what am I feeling right now, but what have I felt all day? And oftentimes with a busy day, we can just roll right through that. So we think about that for a second. There might be equal parts of excitement and what might I call this other one? Uncertainty, I think is what I would call it. It doesn't feel very good. And we could have a whole podcast episode on what does good mean. But there's a couple calls today that I performed and was left wondering, could it have been better? What could I have done differently? And just this shaky feeling of uncertainty. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but that's the truth here, and we are on Truth Seekers, right?
True is true is true. Interesting. How is it you went to say equal parts excitement and then uncertainty, and then you explain more of the uncertainty. So is it true to say it is equal parts, or is it more balanced into the uncertainty?
I just answered it that way because I feel the presence of both. I would say the one that feels more lingering is the uncertainty one. And maybe that interrupts my flow of enjoying the excitement piece.
Are we inherently predisposed to more sensitivity or awareness or pull towards emotions or feelings we might not want?
I will answer in the affirmative because I just had this thought recently that when we feel good or feel positive or feel like we're in a sense of flow, one way I would define how that feels is the absence of a seemingly negative emotion or another incoherent vibration that does not allow us to enjoy or be a part of a more positively geared emotion.
Interesting. So are you saying that if there's excitement there, that if there's a more powerful emotion we don't want, that will overwrite that? And is it just like a simple? I mean, it's not as simple as anything, right? But is it it's there? If it's there, we're screwed, or is there something else to add to that?
I believe my philosophy is, and this has been a lot of belief system reprogramming, that because there is an unwanted quote unquote emotion there, it's trying to get my attention. It's trying to get me to pay attention to something. And like I'm experiencing right now, I don't know what that is. Or maybe I do that after our recording today, just go explore, maybe journal a little bit, but something just feels off. It doesn't feel right, doesn't feel good. And I believe it's there for a reason. At least that's the way I treat it. Previously in my life, I would have, I think I mentioned the term toxic positivity on a podcast a couple weeks ago, or I just would have pretended that it's okay and everything's all right and refocus my attention And that might be a good band-aid approach, but it doesn't do anything for that emotion. It's either going to resurface in minutes or hours or days or weeks, or it's going to overcome whatever emotion I'm pretending that it is anyway, or refocusing.
Yeah, and I love that, by the way. I think that's good. It's like, can't stick your head in the sand and go, "It's good. Everything's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good." Like, you've got to deal with what's there, but you've also. I'm being very careful here because you said what we might call negative emotions. I was careful just to say unwanted emotions or unexpected emotions. If we think
Uninvited,
about
uninvited. I like
uninvited,
that. Yeah,
yeah, it's like, how'd you get in? Do you have a key?
yeah.
Yeah, key.
You're not
Did you have
supposed
a
to be
key?
here.
You rented space in my mind. How did you get in there? Did you? Is that on Airbnb? No, I think it's reminding ourselves that I believe emotions are cues for actions. So you just said, like, what is it telling me to do? And if we just say that there's just emotions, there's no bad or good, it's just emotion. What is it telling me to do? It seems like the reason I asked the original question. It seems like when it's a emotion that we want, that excitement. Oh, okay, I'm excited. Nothing to do.
Mm,
When it's uncertainty, it's emotion we don't want. It's like, well, I need to do something because I don't want this.
mm.
Maybe also there's an opportunity because, like, again, I think there's that waiting involved because it comes back to what we're programmed for is that survival. So that's why I think there's a more of a pull towards the emotions we don't want because our mind's going, okay, this doesn't feel good. This is painful. Pain, more pain. Okay, more pain. Consistent pain means damage. Consistent damage means death. Don't want this. Do something. Don't feel good. Don't feel good. Do something. Versus the other side of it, everything's okay. So there's a natural inclination to take some action on the pain, and then we know that there's many vehicles which are not sustainable that are available for us to go down the road of. We talked about numbing a couple of weeks back, even through meditation for all things. It's like, man, talk about advice, coach. Can you stop that shit?
I've replaced alcoholism with meditation.
With meditation, but the same thing, right? So it's like, okay, am I taking action on it, or am I just removing it so I can't feel it to come back to it?
Mm.
So I'd say that part is more inherent. It's just it will show up for us. That's what I mean by that. So for the excitement, what if we would just move towards the excitement? Because the uncertainty might lead us to take an action, but and that's a decision to make as well, right? And that's a muscle that we strengthen. So if we sit, so here's my balance for you: attention around sitting in that uncertainty, not to have any sort of toxic positivity around it, but going, at what point do I want to complete my analysis and say that everything is actually okay? I'm just going back to my excitement, not in a blind way, but in a way that does create some parameters around it. Otherwise, you could just be sitting in that uncertainty for a long time. Go, I don't know, I haven't figured it out yet. But what? How long are you going to give yourself to figure it out?
Yeah, I think about that. How long does it take for the feeling to go away? And I like what you said. I mean, pain, or aka the uninvited emotion, is the driver of action. So it serves a purpose. And my action, for me, it's one of two decisions. Kind of like what we're saying, like wait it out and focus on the excitement and hope that it goes away, and it will. It does.
Sure.
Or the second part is what I mentioned earlier, is like journaling it and feeling into it. One of the things I'm working on is this, that toxic positivity. What that means is the thing that we're not calling out for what it is will linger there until we decide to feel all the way through it. And that's my version of feeling through it is journaling. Uh, and I think I should go deeper on that because when I say journaling, that can mean a lot of different things to different people. When I journal, I try to articulate in as many different ways as I can what I'm actually experiencing. And sometimes I surprise myself because in a verbal conversation here, we can give one line to pay homage to that feeling of, and I've already done that, right? A couple of minutes ago when I described it to you, I told you what I was feeling. Okay, we've moved on from that, right? There's no additional articulation there. When I journal, I try to look at it from every different angle, and then I inevitably come out with some sort of insight into where maybe the source of it comes from. And I think that's always been my journey when I experience an uninvited emotion is to figure out where it's coming from. Like, why do I all of a sudden feel that? Like, sometimes it feels like out of the blue, and I think it's more of the not knowing that distracts me than the actual feeling.
Hmm.
And I just want to know. That's my curiosity. I just want to know. I got to know. I have to know where this came from. Like, why do I feel this way right now? And the tricky part is, I'll take that a step further, is the situation that maybe delivered it to me in real time is not actually the source, at least in my theory. It's not the reason that it's there. It's maybe the symptom manifesting itself and into a felt sensation. But I believe there's something underlying there, and that's my mission. I go on Inspector Gadget mode and detective mode to go figure out where it's coming from.
I like that. I often think about it like the lag time of it. What did I stop doing 3 weeks ago that's just hitting me now? So I think it's probably the same. Like you said, the delivery method is is disguising the source. Obviously, there are some things which are immediate, like stimulus and response things, where you haven't given yourself enough training in that space where it's just there's a weighting to that, right? It's like 1 to 10 in terms of like power of the stimulus. It might be that without any practice, that a one can knock your state completely out. You could be feeling 10 out of 10 great, and then a one stimulus can knock you down to a one state. You train and train and train your emotional muscles to feel some of that stuff up front, expect up front, create some beliefs around that, then you can probably train yourself. There's probably something for everyone, no matter where you are in your journey, that has a 10 out of 10 weighting, which will knock you out of your state no matter where you are. So then, in that case, then do we become more resilient based on the day-to-day stuff that we're doing? Probably not, right? Because we're trading up in terms of the things we're taking on as well, right? Something like I was working with a client yesterday. He was talking about the things he's doing in his process to open this business and things he's dealing with now. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have even fathomed that he could deal with it. It's now a challenge, but now at least it's like on his radar that he could be part of it, like it could be his thing. And so the challenge, like the stretch, is still the same. It's still that same 10% stretch, but the stimulus is, if you look at it in totality, like that stimulus would have been a 50% stretch 6 months ago. It's now 10% because he's trained himself up to that. So those daily practices, is still just as important no matter where you are.
Yeah. I like I like to think about what you said about the lag time too. Um, it's the zooming in, zooming out, like the lens through which we're viewing it, right? The context, the scale. This is the scale part of that, where I feel this way, and this did it to me. End of story. There's a much bigger story going on at this point. And a great analogy is sales. I've been in sales my whole career. Inevitably, there's a process to um, there's a lag time between introductory connection and the actual close of the sale. And if you look at somebody's book of business for as an example and how much they're closing, their closing rate is directly related to the activity that they did a month or two ago, maybe three. And so if I in January, February, March am crushing the phones and I take April off, I have my best month in the month of May, and it looks like, oh my gosh, I must have busted my ass now or very recently, whereas I took all of April off. And then June comes around. Is that what's after May? Yeah, June comes around, and nothing happens. And I'm wondering why. And maybe in June I was busting my ass on the phones again, but the results weren't there, and that was directly a result of April and taking April off. So as far as feelings and emotions are concerned, I hadn't thought of it like that. What did I do, and what is the right leg time? Right, a couple hours ago, a couple days ago, you mentioned a couple weeks, right? Like 3 weeks ago. What is that? What is the feeling? Be able to articulate the feeling, and then that's the exploration. What could it be? What might I tie this to? That, to your point, I can practice or develop a routine around to make sure that whatever it doesn't happen again, or I can nip it in the bud when it happens in the future, or I can focus more on the excitement and the good parts that it's preventing me from feeling when I feel this way again in the future.
Well, yeah, I like to build that on the front end, right? Starting some sort of new behavior, like a routine or something. Let's use journaling as an example, right? You're going to get an immediate lift, or something's going to happen, right? But if you're not familiar with it, it's going to be bumpy and it might not feel good. You have to stick with it a little bit to start to see a result, right? You're in lag time, and then if I'm working with a client, I'm making sure that they're pointing out what they're seeing as a result of what they're doing. And then I might joke around and say, so what you're telling me is that when you're doing it, it works. Yes. And then so if we get to a point where they stop doing it, they won't notice day one, day two, day three. And the longer you've been doing it, the longer the delay is. I can get away with that for a few days, or a few more days. And then suddenly, wham, what happened? Nothing happened. I didn't do anything different. Not yesterday, but if you look over the last couple of weeks, and it just becomes so complex because there's so many moving pieces. There's no way of telling what actually it was, and it's not even that useful anyway. When things are good, what are the things that I'm generally doing in my day that are in my control? And you'll find some really good hints. When I feel the best, what actually am I doing? In an example where it's been going great, what have I been doing consistently in that point? What's always the theme? What's around? Like such a key thing in business, right? You said that sales part. It's just that's why we want to judge the day based on the seeds that you plant, not the harvest that you reaped. Because it's looking in the future, not looking for the now. It's like if I've got a client that's celebrating a big win, great. And how many reach outs did you do this week?
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna think more about lag time once we end here, because I think that's like to what you're saying right now. I've been doing a certain thing. I feel this thing now. It's like working out, right? If I have a beach trip coming up, I want to look good on the beach. I'm not working out when I have my trunks on and I'm on the beach with my shirt off. But it was the 3 months before. Same with sports, right? There's an old adage that the
Yeah,
Super Bowl is won in training camp. Like how you show up, what you do in preparation is
yeah,
how you show up, how you perform.
yeah.
So what are the things that you're doing when things are good, and how can you replicate that or double down on it or recommit to those good things? And maybe one last example, like exercise, right? In a different form. If you go for a run immediately after, there's not much leg time, right? You feel good, maybe even while it's happening. The runner's high, when you stop running, right? You still have like good vibrations going through your body, right? And there's chemicals that get released that feel good. So if I don't run for a couple of days in a row, I don't have that anymore. So there's also a lastingness, a duration that's probably actually in the dictionary somewhere, for how long those feelings last, and the practice of that. Maybe it's not so much of implementing new things, but shortening the distance between the good things that I am doing and just doing it a little bit more instead of once a week, 4 times a week, something like that.
Yeah, now we're getting into the nuance of like the different levels of experience you have doing certain things, right? Because so for running is a good example, because I'm not much of a runner, so I like when it's done. and getting those miles done because I know it's good for me. But I don't get the runner's high. Like I don't like it. I'm okay with it, but I don't like it. And I'm never like, oh, let's go for a run. That sounds great. It never sounds good to me. But it does sound good to go lift a bunch of weights. That sounds great. So I've done that enough where it's now part of something I like to do in the activity itself. So you want to get committed to your outcomes, but fall in love with the process. And that takes a while. And that's why when it's really embedded, it doesn't become any willpower because I want the result. I want the result. Okay, I got to do the thing. The thing itself becomes the outcome, and the longer term benefits are just inherent already. You just win all around.
Yeah, like a cherry on top. It's like the icing on the cake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Coach, you got me thinking. That's all I want to do in these conversations, these episodes. I appreciate that today.
Appreciate you, Coach. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any takeaways? Any bows to tie here? Wanna go for a run?
I actually might have to go for a run. Got my workout commitments going as well. We've got some workouts planned for this week. I think just remembering the lag time is so important. What are you doing when it feels good? Like overall, like zoom out enough to go. That month was good. What was different about that month? Of the things that you can control, right? There's always things to look for. It's not an exact science, but you got a whole lifetime to figure it out. Keep practicing.
One word of sign off for me. Leg time with running. You can spell LEG. Okay, I'll be here all week. Coach, have a good day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.